In today's video, I want to talk about why your autistic spouse loves the dog more than he does you. We're going to try to understand selective emotional availability in ASD level 1. Have you ever watched your autistic spouse kneel down to greet the dog with warmth, excitement, and affection, only to walk past you without making eye contact? Maybe you've seen them laugh with the dog, cuddle the dog, talk to the dog, and even worry endlessly if the dog isn't feeling well. Meanwhile, you've been longing for one meaningful conversation, just one genuine hug, maybe one sign that they see your emotional pain. Okay, well, if you've experienced that, you're not alone. Many neurotypical spouses have quietly asked themselves a heartbreaking question. Why does it seem like my spouse loves the dog more than me? Today, we're going to explore one of the most misunderstood dynamics in neurodiverse marriages. The answer isn't that your partner loves you less. The answer often has much more to do with how an autistic nervous system experiences safety, predictability, and emotional complexity. And once you understand that difference, you may begin seeing behaviors that once felt deeply personal through an entirely different lens. So let's begin. One of the biggest misconceptions about autism is that autistic people don't experience deep emotions. No. The opposite is often true. Most autistic adults feel emotions with incredible intensity. The challenge isn't usually emotional depth, it's emotional processing. Imagine walking into a room where every single light is flashing, several televisions are playing at once, someone is spraying perfume, music is blaring over there, and people are asking you a bunch of questions, and your phone won't stop vibrating. That's what social interaction can feel like for some autistic nervous systems. Every facial expression carries information. Every change in voice carries information. Every pause carries information. Every expectation carries information. And even eye contact can require significant neurological effort. Now, imagine adding the emotional needs of someone you deeply love. Suddenly, that interaction becomes extraordinarily demanding, not because love isn't present, but because the ASD brain is trying to process thousands of pieces of information simultaneously. Now, compare that experience to interacting with the dog. The dog isn't judging. The dog isn't asking for emotional explanations. The dog isn't saying, we need to talk. The dog isn't saying, well, you never meet my emotional needs. No, the dog is not expecting nuanced empathy. The dog doesn't become offended by missing eye contact. The dog's emotional signals are wonderfully simple. Happy, excited, hungry, play, rest. For an autistic nervous system that constantly works overtime decoding human interaction, that simplicity is profoundly regulating. The relationship feels predictable, safe, clear. There are a few hidden meanings. The rules stay the same every day. This is something psychologists sometimes describe as selective emotional availability. It doesn't mean that the autistic person has more love available for the dog than for their spouse. It means their nervous system has more capacity available under conditions that feel neurologically safe. Think of emotional energy like the battery on your phone. If dozens of background apps are running, your battery drains quickly. Human relationships, especially in a neurodiverse marriage, often require many background apps. Reading facial expressions, predicting emotional reactions, monitoring body language, choosing the right words, managing misunderstandings, recovering from previous conflicts, filtering sensory information, planning responses, suppressing anxiety, and on and on and on we go. That battery can become depleted surprisingly fast. The dog? No, very few apps are running. The nervous system finally gets a chance to breathe. Here's something that many neurotypical spouses understandably misunderstand. When they see their autistic partner affectionate with the dog, they conclude, see, they are capable of affection. They just choose not to give it to me. That conclusion makes perfect emotional sense, but neurologically, it's terribly inaccurate. Capability is highly dependent on nervous system load. Someone may be capable of warmth when their brain feels regulated, but less access to that same warmth when social demands become overwhelming. This isn't unlike someone with chronic migraines who can enjoy a quiet evening at home, but struggles under bright lights and loud crowds. The ability changes depending on the environment, and for most autistic adults, emotional accessibility works similarly. Now, let's talk about something I'm going to call the safety paradox. The neurotypical spouse wants emotional closeness. The autistic spouse also wants less conflict. Both goals seem compatible, don't they? Here's the paradox. The neurotypical spouse often reaches for connection by increasing emotional intensity. We need to talk. Tell me how you feel, or help me understand, or why won't you open up? Unfortunately, each attempt to create closeness increases the autistic partner's nervous system activation. The more overwhelmed they become, the less emotionally available they appear. Meanwhile, the dog over there simply walks to the ASD spouse, leans against them, and silently says, I'm here. No pressure, No performance, no evaluation. Just pet me on the head. The nervous system relaxes. Affection becomes accessible again. It's not because the dog matters more. It's because the interaction costs less neurologically. Let's look at a case example. Sarah watched her husband spend 20 minutes brushing the dog after work. He smiled. He laughed. He scratched behind the dog's ears. Then he walked into the kitchen. Sarah had been crying for most of the afternoon after a difficult day, and he barely noticed. She later said, "I don't think you even see me anymore." But when she began understanding autism differently, she discovered something surprising. By the time he got home each day, his nervous system had already spent hours masking, problem solving, navigating social interactions, filtering sensory information, and managing workplace stress. Brushing the dog became his transition ritual. It regulated his nervous system. It wasn't replacing Sarah, it was helping his brain recover enough to function. That understanding didn't erase Sarah's loneliness. Her pain remained completely valid, but it shifted the conversation from blame to understanding, and that changed everything. Now, I want to be very careful here. Understanding ASD should never become an excuse for emotional neglect. To the NT wives out there, your emotional needs matter. Feeling invisible hurts. Feeling chronically disconnected hurts. Feeling emotionally abandoned hurts. Those experiences deserve compassion. Explaining behavior is not the same thing as excusing behavior. But healthy neurodiverse marriages involve both partners learning. The neurotypical spouse learns to understand neurological differences. The autistic spouse learns that emotional connection is a skill that can be intentionally developed. Neither partner carries the entire responsibility. Growth belongs to both. So, what actually helps? Okay. First, lower unnecessary social complexity whenever possible. Most autistic adults connect more effectively during shared activities than face-to-face emotional conversations. Walking together, driving together, gardening, cooking, doing projects. Most of the time, side-by-side connection creates more safety than sitting across from each other asking emotionally loaded questions. Second, reduce ambiguity. Instead of saying, "I wish you cared more," try, "Could you sit with me for 10 minutes without your phone?" Concrete requests are often easier for autistic brains to process than abstract emotional expectations. Third, appreciate nervous system timing. Immediately after work may not be the best time for emotionally intense conversations. Sometimes allowing decompression first dramatically changes emotional availability later. Finally, celebrate small moments of connection. Autistic affection often looks different rather than absent. Fixing something that matters to you, bringing you your favorite snack, remembering practical details, solving problems, protecting routines, showing loyalty. These behaviors may not feel emotionally expressive to the NT spouse, but they are often genuine expressions of love. Now, if you're the autistic partner watching today, here's something I'd like you to consider. If your NT spouse says, "It feels like you love the dog more than me," try not to hear that as criticism. Hear the grief underneath it. Your NT spouse is saying, "I miss you. I want to feel chosen. I want to know that I matter too." That longing deserves some kindness. And if you're the neurotypical spouse, remember this. Your ASD partner's connection with the dog isn't evidence that you're unloved. It's evidence that their nervous system has found one place where it doesn't have to work so hard. The challenge is not competing with the dog, okay? The challenge is helping your relationship become another place of neurological safety. That's where healing begins. Not by asking who is loved more, but by asking, how can we make emotional connection feel safer for both of us? Because the goal isn't choosing between marriage and the dog. The goal is creating a marriage where both partners can finally let their nervous systems rest. And when safety grows, love usually becomes more easy to see. Now, if this video helps you understand ASD and neurodiverse marriage in a new way, subscribe to the channel. Every week, we explore practical strategies that help autistic and neurotypical partners stop blaming each other, understanding what's really happening beneath the surface, and build relationships where both people can finally feel understood. Would you like to schedule a paid private coaching session? This will be in the form of a face-to-face Zoom call. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this Calendly link. If you click on that link, it'll open up my calendar. You can pick the available days and times that works for your schedule. You'll get a follow-up email immediately after purchasing a session that will have the Zoom link that coincides with the day and time that you picked. I will get an email too that you scheduled a session, and I will be available on that exact day and time, and we will talk. I look forward to working with you.